Welcome everybody. Got a very heavy episode today. My guest is Thomas Schulze. He's a friend out of Germany. We're going to be discussing, amongst other things, but mostly the Scorpions, which the fucking Scorps. Uh, I know I love the Scorps. Have a lot of friends, and Thomas is, you know, I know through online chats and all that. Being from Germany, massive Scorpions fan, so I thought he'd be a great guest to have to discuss the Scorpions. I did see the reason. I remember Thomas posting a video years back of like his Scorpions collection, and I think me and a bunch of other people were like, "Whoa!" It was really cool to see. So to today he's going to join us and kind of show that off a little bit. I know he won't think of it as showing off, but to me it would be if I had all that cool stuff. I'd be showing it off all the time. So, and if I do remember, I don't think there's any like Wind of Change picture disc or anything like that. Uh, so anyhow, Thomas, welcome. Appreciate you joining me. How's things over there in Germany right now?
Well, it's still wintry and it's still corona-y, and I'm getting on everybody's nerves.
Yeah.
We're way behind with the vaccine and stuff, so it'll be a couple of months till we get out of the worst of it. But well, we're hanging in there. Everybody's healthy and trying to stay sane, and talking to you probably helps a little bit. And I'm probably the first one ever to tell you that it helps you to stay sane to talk to you.
Yeah, I think you're right. A little bit more history on Thomas. He was back in the '80s. He was in a hardcore punk bands. One of them was Everything Falls Apart. He also did a zine. I believe it was Trustine back then. So he's been involved in the punk hardcore scene since way back when. I guess that's kind of how we cross paths on like message boards or whatever involving punk and hardcore. So when did you first hear the Scorpions? Do you remember?
Yeah. Uh, Funnily enough, my memory is better for the 70s than a lot of stuff that happened in the 80s, but probably just because it happened for the first time. And I mean, you just remember that. I mean, I was like, in 78, I was 12 years old, and finding my way into music. I mean, I had been listening to rock and roll before and started to listen to the Stones and stuff. And then I stumbled upon Deep Purple, and I was like, wow, that stuff is cool. So I wanted to find out more about it. I did not have any friends at school who were listening to any kinds of hard music. It was tough to find stuff on radio. I mean, they hardly played stuff like that, at least in Munich, where I come from, in Bavaria. So I finally happened upon a guy who liked Deep Purple, and he introduced me to Rainbow. He said, like, Long Live Rock and Roll is the greatest record. And when he played it to me, I had to agree. I mean, it was pretty cool. He was the guy who introduced me to Van Halen, and he was the guy who introduced me to the Scorps. He had bought Tokyo tapes. I mean, which
Oh yeah,
I bought after that, and it was just fucking cool. I mean,
yeah, yeah,
and knowing that there's a German band playing that kind of stuff with a guitar player who sounded like Jimi Hendrix,
yeah,
and they're just like doing these super heavy riffs, which I think like no other band at the time was doing. Maybe Priest in a way, but different, but just this awesome heaviness. I mean, they were like the first band that did that. So well, that's how it started for me with Tokyo tapes. I mean, I was listening to that up and down, and we were all totally amazed. Look, a German band that's so popular in Japan, which
yeah.
apparently they didn't know themselves until they went to Japan for the first time, and they were just suddenly they were treated like superstars. Before, I mean, in Germany they were popular, but not
Yeah,
super popular.
yeah,
They were selling out small venues like 1,500 people, but not bigger than that. And then they went over to Tokyo, and suddenly they're celebrated, and
Yeah.
people knew all their songs. So I mean, I think that gave them like a lot of confidence. So when they came back, Uli left the band, and Rudolf got his brother to rejoin the band, Michael, who must have had a really tough time at UFO, because I think Phil Mogg was an asshole to him, and did not like that Michael was getting all the spotlight for his amazing guitar playing. So that's how they got Michael back, and they recorded Love Drive, which of course everybody knows now.
Yeah.
And that made Scorps, I mean, super popular in Germany as well. So they did the one tour with Michael, and Michael left again because he had like psychological problems. And they got Matthias Jobs to join the band, who was actually the first replacement after Uli got out, and then was nice enough to leave the band again so Michael could rejoin. And then when it didn't pan out with Michael, Matthias got back into the band, and well, he was the guitar player ever since. So the very first show I went to in my life was a Scorpions show, actually.
Oh, see, that's what I was going to get to next. I think it's kind of odd that your first album you heard from them was a live tape. So it was actually a pretty good segue. And I was going to ask you, when was the first time you saw them live?
Well, I was 13, and the band that everybody was raving about was AC/DC. Actually, it was just like right before Highway to Hell was released, and they got airplay on the radio. There was just like this one show we had called Pop nach Acht. It was like a daily, and it was from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Bavarian radio, and it was Highway to Hell was the record of the week, so they played like the whole album before it was released, so everybody knew the songs. So the very first show they did, AC/DC did when after the record was released, was on September 1st, 79, at an open air festival in Nuremberg. So my cousins, who were older than me, I was just 13, and Nuremberg is like an hour and a half from Munich. So they said, well, why don't you come with us? We'll hop on the train and we'll go to Nuremberg to see that. The Who were headlining, and it was like their fourth show with Kenny Jones. I think the very first show they did after the warm-up shows they did in the south of France. And just like right when Quadrophenia, when the movie came out, and so they were promoting Quadrophenia again, and it was right around the time when Kids Are All Right was released. So I mean, they were on the up and up again, and AC/DC played. Everybody, and I'd say, I mean, there were like 70,000 people there, and half of them were wearing AC/DC vests and stuff.
Yeah.
And Cheap Trick played, and and the Scorpions played, and Molly Hatchet played.
Wow, that was your first show?
That was my very, very first show.
So, wow.
Truth be told, the very first band I saw was Molly Hatchet, and then after that there was like a Steve Gibbons band, and then the Scorpions played. Early, 3 p.m. And it was pretty much the same set they did in Reading the same year, and they're just amazing. But I mean, my very, very first show, it was like this amazing venue at the Reichstagsgelände. That's where Hitler had his party rallies and stuff.
Wow.
in the mid-30s.
Wow.
And the audience was actually sitting where the Nazi Party had their rally, and the stage was on the other side of the venue.
That's wild.
And it was just perfect. The Scorpions played. After Scorpions, AC/DC played, and was with Bon Scott, of course.
Oh man.
And then Cheap Trick, and then Miriam Makeba, and then the Who. So it was like the perfect day.
Wow.
And it was like a 22-hour trip for a 13-year-old guy. And the one thing I really remember was that I did not go to the toilet to pee once, because I was just so.
Well, that's dedication, or I don't know. That's wow.
Yeah. So that's well, the Scorpions are, well, kind of like important to me and
Right.
intrinsically, enmeshed in who I am. And I went to see them again after Animal Magnetism was released.
Yeah.
I have.
So when you saw him in '79, was Michael Schenker playing guitar?
Oh no, it was already with Matthias. I mean, I
Oh,
would have
okay.
loved to see them with Michael because he was kind of like a hero for us, and
Yeah.
he was just like so super cool looking at the time. But I mean, he just couldn't stand it. And I remember the year after that when the Michael Schenker group started, there was
Hmm.
this article in a magazine, and he had just like cut off all his hair with the razor, and he just told this story that I had to cut off all my hair and it was bleeding everywhere, and we were just like, whoa, that guy is intense. So, well,
Yeah, he's had some.
great.
He's had some odd moments over his career. Um, so
Yeah, I think he's probably weird. Yeah, but I mean, I think that comes from the stuff. I mean, he had to go through in the '70s with UFO, and just like being this really young guy, leaving his family. I mean, I think he was like 14 or 15 when he joined UFO and left Germany to go to play with UFO.
yeah,
So I
that
mean, it
that's
must have been tough for him.
yeah. It has to be. It's almost like a child actor or something like that, where it's a lot of just hanging around a lot of adults and whatnot, and having to try to fit into that lifestyle at such a young age. Uh, Speaking of the guitarist, I mean, I think I know the answer, but Schenker, Uli, or Matthias?
That's a tough one. Probably not Matthias. I mean, I like the guy, but it doesn't. He does not really connect with me. Although he has a guitar store in like 10 minutes from where I live, and I keep walking by their MJ guitars.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Um, but I'd have to go with Uli, I think, because of sales, just because of Sales of Charon, because I think
Yeah,
that's just the one song that is so great and so perfect. And I mean, I loved it from the first time I heard it. And it was strange because at that time, I mean, that song did not have a lot of momentum. They didn't play it live. So it took me a while, actually, till a couple of years ago, that I realized that, it had become like this almost mythical song, not just for me, but for most people who listen to the Scorps, and that, you know, but I mean, it's just the perfect Uli song. It has everything. It has the Hendrix moves, but it's like mythical,
yeah,
and it's just so super metal in a way. The blind man sitting here on the wall.
yeah.
Just
It's a classic song. I think that's one of those easily like top five songs of like just about anybody. That song will be in everybody's top five. I think it's just something about it. It just like grabs you like from the very first guitar note. It's like wow. And then the way he just seamlessly plays. Cause I was watching that a video of them. I guess it might be like a TV show where they show them playing, and he's just like you can just see him feeling every single note he's playing. It's amazing, man. That guy. I mean, I saw him way later. I saw him do his like solo stuff here a few years back, and of course they played that song, and it's just amazing watching him play that song. It's like, and I was literally like 3 feet away from him. I was like, whoa, just mind blown. The guy was a genius, or I guess he still is. He's still around, but I
yeah,
think I'd have to agree. But I mean, I love Michael Schenker, but I think Uli's like it's on another level. I mean, not the Schenker, not taking anything away from the other guys, but for some reason,
no, no, it's not.
Uli has just this. I don't know. It's like his songs kind of like speak to you or something. I don't know. It's just weird. He knows exactly what notes to hit all the time. It seems. Uh, so I know most people don't like this question, but what are your top three Scorps albums today, right now?
Right now, I mean, I'd say number one is Virgin Killer. I just think it's so amazingly heavy, especially considering '76. But I mean, whenever it might have been released, I mean, whatever year, I mean, it still would be like one of the heaviest albums of the year, and I just think it's just the perfect Scorps album because it has it all, you know.
Starts off with Pictured Life.
Yeah, and Virgin Killer and stuff. So
Yeah.
and of course it has the provocative cover art,
Oh yeah.
which of course, I mean, you know, it never was a problem in Germany. You could just buy the record at stores. I mean, it was like in the windows. Nobody, it didn't bother anyone, you know. Of course, then people looked at it, but nobody thought it was like, you know, a call to whatever, rape children, or even, people did not really see such a strong sexual connotation as people see today.
Right. Yeah, different times, right?
Yeah.
All right, so Virgin Killer, and then what else?
Virgin Killer. I guess I'll have to go with Love Drive after that,
Oh wow.
because it's just well, it was just the timing when the record was released was when I was really getting into the music. I bought it when it was brand new, and I kind of like the direction they went. I really love Another Piece of Meat, which I think is still super Scorpion, super heavy, but different than that. And I really like it for that. And Coast to Coast, and of course everybody loved the lyrics to Love Drive, and you know, as an impressionable 14-year-old, 13 or 14-year-old guy, if somebody gets down to show you why the Scorpion has a sting, it's kind of like I mean, it's super dumb and silly, but when you're 13 and 14, you are super dumb and silly.
Absolutely.
Kind of like, yeah, I really love that. And it's number 3. It's difficult. I mean, I'll have to go with Taken by Force because of Sales of Karen, and because of He's a Woman, She's a Man. I mean,
yes, I love that song.
Just so good. And I mean, He's a Woman, She's a Man is almost early speed metal-ish, you know. So I think it was a really trailblazing song. Also, I think it's funny because it also has this super weird glam connotation, you know, playing with gender roles. He's a woman, she's a man. We thought it was really weird when that came out, and when we first heard that, and you know, when you're so young and you have the records, and you cannot buy a lot of records when you're 13. I mean, you really have to think: what do I spend my milk money on?
Yeah.
And then buy that one record. I mean, and that's the one record you live with for a week. I mean, you just take it in your hand, turn it around. You hope that there's like a lyric sheet or something more to look at, and you basically live with that record. I mean, you know, until it becomes a part of you. So
yeah, that's true, because like, I mean, now I make this point all the time. Nowadays, you're bombarded with endless amounts of music, and you know, when I was younger, I'm a little younger than you. When you were younger, you actually, like you said, invested time in an album that you bought, you know, by just, you know, looking at every single detail on the front, on the back, on the insert, the lyrics, and that just doesn't happen anymore. I mean, it's the way it is, but yeah, I can totally you know, agree with that, because I used to love just sitting down and, you know, and looking at every single detail of an album. That's, to me, that's part of the whole package, you know. So
that was, you know. And I mean, it was kind of like, it's almost like a rite of passage, you know, that you knew that you were going to go into town, that you were going to go through to the 3 or 4 or 5 record stores that you knew that had all the new shit. And it took you hours, you know, just going through, flipping through records and thinking, wow, which one shall I take? And is there maybe a friend who's going to buy that because I can tape that off him? I don't have to buy it. I can buy it later if it's really good. So I I'm buy that one, and that's the one, you know, you devote your time with it. I love that about it. I mean, it's almost like a fetishistic kind of thing, but I mean, I think it's part of the whole parcel.
I agree. I still do that now, where I like if I'm at a record store, I'll just pick things out. Like, well, maybe I'll get this one, and I'll make a stack, and then eventually I like, okay, which one do I really want, and which one do I really need, and 10 turns to 5, and 5 turns to 1, or whatever. So I don't know. I like doing that. It's a lot of fun for me, but like you said, it's almost something weird about it. So what you talk about record stores, wherever you grew up at, you had that many record stores, like 5 or 6 record stores, you said, or
Munich was actually pretty good. I mean, it took me a while. I mean, I was living on the outskirts of town, so it was a pretty big trip for a kid like me to go into town to find the record stores. And it took me a while to find the really good ones. So by the time I had found the good ones, I probably had stopped listening to metal, and I was more into punk
right?
and stuff. But they were pretty good stores. The only problem that the stores in Germany, I think basically in Germany, had at the time is that you could not listen to the records. They did not have listening booths, and not like, and of course, in most stores, some of the stores were not just straight record stores. It was just like instrument stores and stuff, and they had like a record section, and they never wanted you to hang out there because they didn't want to have like long-haired kids there, and they just like always tried to leave now. You
Yeah,
spent enough time there, so they did not want you to listen to the records because they were afraid that you were going to scratch them or whatever,
yeah.
that kind of stuff. So
Um,
it was a big investment to go for, just like look at a cover and go, I'm going to buy this record because it looks badass or it looks great.
yeah,
And that's why, of course, the radio was so important, or your friends were so important, because they helped you, find stuff, and they gave you recommendations.
yeah,
That
totally.
made it easier. Because if you bought the wrong record, I mean, the money was gone and it was a shit record, and you still had to live for a week with it, and.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I was going to ask you about venues over there, but I don't think it can get any better than the venue you saw that Scorpion show at, which was like where Hitler's
Yeah.
parties or
Well,
whatever were held. So that's kind of hard to top.
yeah, well, I once saw, I think in 89 or 90, I saw Slayer at the Deutsches Museum. Deutsches Museum is like one of the only buildings in Munich that was built by the Nazis. I mean, it has like a Nazi architecture. It's like the big museum we have, and it
Yeah.
still has, at the corners, it still has like the Iron Eagles and stuff.
Wow.
And to see Slayer play there, that was amazing. I remember I
Yeah.
was standing right like 2 or 3 meters away from Jeff Hanneman, and he was playing like his Waffen SS guitar, where he had like the Waffen
Yeah.
SS sticker on it and the Dead
Wow.
Kennedy sticker. So that was South of Heaven, I think, that tour. So that was pretty much the best matchup of a band and the venue that I've
Yeah, that's cool. That's a cool story. I'm glad I asked. Uh,
experienced.
well, I have a question from a loyal viewer. I don't know if you know this guy, some guy named Chris Woody McDermott. I don't know if you heard of that
Oh,
guy, but he didn't ask this, but this is something he would probably ask you. You ever partied with the Scorps?
I actually did.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, couple, well, parties, probably too strong a word, but that came through my work. I work as a film journalist, and the
Right.
publishing house that I work for had like they stopped doing it, but until a couple of years ago, we had like a yearly award show kind of thing,
Yeah.
where people were, well, who did important stuff for the film and the home entertainment industry, and also music industry, were awarded. So one day we awarded the Scorpions. I mean, and it was pretty much like a last minute idea, because the other guys at my work, of course, are not listening to hard rock or heavy metal all that much.
Yeah.
And I think one of the music acts we wanted to given a war to, dropped out. So I was kind of like, well, why don't we try the Scorpions? I mean, the I think they were just like on one of their farewell tours or whatever they did. And why don't we try? And the next day they said, yes, we're gonna come. So I mean, only Rudolf and Klaus showed up,
Oh, that's great.
but they showed up, and well, being a nice guy, close to wearing a tuxedo and a black tie, and went up to them to talk to them. And then of course, I mean, they were just like dressed like rock stars, as that,
Yeah, yeah,
which they are.
yeah. Of course.
And I walked up to them to talk to them and to ask them about their 70s output and stuff. But they were kind of like dismissive about it, because I think they never, once they got big in the mid 80s, I mean, they never looked back. And you have to understand that, I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why they're so dismissive about, the earlier records and the cover art of the earlier records, is because, I mean, there's no band that is more mainstream in Germany than the Scorpions are. It's not just because of Wind of Change, but also because the town they come from, Hanover, is where the chancellor before Angela Merkel came from, Gerhard Schröder, and they were good friends with him. So I mean, which hard rock band do you have that keeps hanging out with the chancellor of your country?
Yeah,
So
that's a good point.
they were kind of like, so they're kind of like royalty in a way, and they're, you have to say, they're pretty arrogant too. And I mean, they always had like airs about them. I remember that the very first time I saw them in '79, there was like a radio interview with them that
Yeah,
came like a couple of days later, about that open air, because it was a pretty big thing. And they just, in this very, almost, well, very arrogant way, they kept talking about, yeah, we used to wear leather, but now we wear stretch, because stretch is really cool when you're on stage. They just kept, talking for 5 minutes about wearing stretch, and
oh,
that
wow.
they don't wear high heels anymore, but that they're wearing ballerina shoes because it's better for the stage presence and stuff.
Oh,
So I
yeah,
mean, that's kind of like who it's kind of like what the Scorpions are.
right.
I think they, once they pass, after Japan and after Uli, they decided to become rock stars. But they are not, they are not born rock stars. It's kind of like how they imagine rock stars should be and have to be and should be treated.
Right,
So
yeah.
it's kind of like, it's a very funny thing. I mean, I think you can almost hear it on the records. You can hear it on Blackout a little, but all the later stuff that I don't really care for
Right.
anymore. And so I mean, I back then I walked up to them to talk to them about their old records, and they're kind of like, yeah, those are good records, but I wouldn't I wouldn't have been able to talk to them about their music from back then how I'm able to talk to you about it, because
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
they would not even understand why I appreciate that part of their career the most,
yeah.
because of course everything that came after is so much more important, because that's what made them big and made them
Money.
superstars to
Yeah.
me.
Maybe,
So
maybe a lot.
but
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I managed to get an autograph off them for Woody,
Oh,
and he had
nice, nice, nice. Well, maybe I'm sitting here thinking that maybe like Uli kind of overshadows maybe them, because when everybody thinks of like 70 Scorps, it's like Uli. Maybe that has something to do with it. You think?
I just think they've I think they see the '70s as kind of like their apprenticeship.
Ah, okay, yeah.
They've left their apprenticeship behind because they're masters now.
No,
What they think is masterful, we think is kind of like, nah, it's
yeah,
not so masterful. I saw them the last time I saw them was I think in the early 2000s, something like that, and in one of the biggest venues, and they had like background singers, and I thought they were terrible. I mean,
Background singers.
they're kind of like a parody of themselves. I know people still rate them very highly, especially live. I did not enjoy them at all. I liked them in '79. I thought they were great in '80, but that's about it. And that those are the records that I have. You know,
They I think they still bring out like Uli and Michael Schenker sometimes, right? Maybe like just for like kind of like, hey, look, these guys used to play with us or whatever.
yeah. But I don't. I think there's some tension between Rudolph and Michael.
Yeah.
I don't know what went down. I did not follow it, and I think also Uli is kind of like not into their trip at all. I mean, he's more, you know, what we like about musicians.
Right, right,
He
and yeah, and I
doesn't
saw
like it.
I'd never see Rudolph like in a small club like I saw Uli, you know. So, all right, well, no, that's great. So let's get to the show and tell portion of it. I want to see all those tapes or records.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, three I already showed you, and I kind of like did it. Well, those are, well, everybody has those.
Right, right.
The Hellenwein cover and this. I mean, I think I inherited that from a girlfriend. I mean, to me it was over after Black Dog. I did not buy their stuff anymore. But then you come to the earlier stuff, which of course, oh, there's well, Fly to the Rainbow. I have two of those. I don't even know why, but well, and one of them is like a cheapy kind of Best Buy series. So I mean,
Oh, okay.
that was released when they became really popular, and RCA wanted to cash in on their popularity that they had. Then of course we have Taken by Force with this really awkward album, and I always imagined, because back then we did not know how the original album had supposed to look like,
Right,
and I always thought, well, if the album is called Taken by Force, it'll be probably more, you know, risque than Virgin Killer. But it
right.
turns out that the record company had nixed it except for Japan. So in Japan, Taken by Force was released with the original
Yeah.
cover,
Oh man, yeah, that's awesome.
like children playing at the graveyard. So nudity was not a problem, but children playing in a graveyard. That,
That's
that
classic.
was that was the straw that broke the camel's back in the early.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Children in
Well,
graveyards. Is there anything
yeah,
different on that? Any extra tracks or anything, or on that Jap? And
no,
that's
no,
Japan. Okay,
it's exactly the same record.
okay,
It's got,
that's nice though.
and it's really nice because of course Japanese records always come with the thick cardboard
Yeah,
covers and stuff.
yeah, that's
It's
nice.
really nice. And of course, I was gonna say, well, the two risque covers they did was, of course, now it's in trance. I never realized that people might be thinking of the one boob that you see there
Yeah,
as
yeah, 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 yeah,
problematic, but I found out that actually that was also blacked out later on because,
yeah,
um, but that's the original. I mean, that was the only one that you could buy in the late '70s, and that's the one I bought. And
yeah.
then, of
That's
course, you
awesome.
have Virgin Killer. I'm gonna put my. I don't know if you. I don't want to get you in trouble with
Right, 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 right. Yeah,
showcasing that.
that's the one. Yeah, that's the one.
That's
Yeah,
the one. And I tried to read up on it, how it happened, and apparently it was a very innocent affair. I mean, the girl was 12 or 13 years old, and was her parents were there. The photographer made sure that there were only women around, so that she felt comfortable.
right,
She was not forced to do anything. She was not, you know, coerced. And he said it never was a sexual situation while they were shooting it, and he never felt it overtly that it was overtly sexual at all.
hmm,
And if you read the lyrics to Virgin Killer, which apparently is about, you know, climate change and the world going you know, to the dogs, and that's the Virgin Killer, and he tried to express it, you know, artistically. So
yeah,
little did he know that like 20 years or 30 years later, the FBI would come knocking
yeah,
and start an investigation if it's a thing of child pornography. But I think it's in the eye of the beholder. If you want it to be child pornography, I mean, it probably is, but if you just look at what it is, it's just a photo of a 12-year-old girl.
So it was the photographer's idea, the
I don't know
album's
who's
concept.
it probably was the photographer's idea. He also did in trance before that. So, but he's mainly known for doing like rock star portraits. I mean,
Huh.
and I've seen that there's that one. I'd have to look it up again, but there has been an exhibition by uh, by a female exhibitor, I think in Paris, but don't. And she did like installations that were like reenactments of the cover shoot,
Oh,
because she got photos from the photographer from the shoot,
yeah,
and she like not just the girl, but just to see the atmosphere, and
right,
she reenacted those photos just to to demythalize
right,
that it's not such a myth, that photo, that it was just like
right.
a very innocent affair.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I understand. That makes sense.
and well, and I think there's like only one album that's rare. I mean, if you go for the first pressing, and that's the first one where Michael plays on, it's Lonesome Crow.
Yeah.
It's this one here, and it's the rare pressing is on Green Brain, so that's the one here.
Oh, yes, nice.
It's the Green Brain label, so that's the first pressing from '72, and I think that's the only one that really brings in
That's awesome.
major bucks.
Yeah, that's
That's
awesome.
pretty much it.
That's a cool gatefold.
Well done. And of course, what I never knew, and I found out like 20 years ago or 15 years ago, was that the Scorpions had played as opening act for the Sweet, the British glam band.
Yeah.
And the next day went into the studio and recorded 2 Sweet songs in German. And they released them, but they did not release them under their own name, not as Scorpions, but they called themselves the Hunters. And I
Oh.
think that's pretty much the rarest. That's probably the rarest
Oh, wow.
Scorpions record. And it's a Fox on the Run and Action in German, like the two.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I've never seen that. I didn't even knew that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's probably the rarest.
Who signed that? Rudy and who else?
It's signed by Rudy and Klaus.
Oh, okay.
And I got that in an eBay auction, and well, it wasn't cheap, but it was still a pretty good price considering what it's going for now.
Yeah,
And,
that's wild.
The girl that was selling it just wrote to me that she's a big Scorpions fan, and it took her ages to get those autographs, but she had to sell the record to pay the rent. So.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's awesome. That's cool. I've never seen that one.
Yeah, and it's really good too. I mean, it really sounds like the Scorpions playing the Sweet, but I think there were like contractual problems why they could not release it under their own name, so they released it under the Hunters.
That's cool.
And like the only other one that I have that is kind of like I just don't know where I have it. I should have it somewhere here. This I've been looking for it for years, because it was kind of like, to me, it had like a mythical quality. You can find it now. I have to look it up. I just brought it with me. It's like it's a live record from the Philippines, which is basically just outtakes of Tokyo tapes.
Oh, cool.
Plus 3 songs from Love Drive, which are
Wow.
not live, which were taken just like from the studio record.
Uh-huh.
And only after another piece of meat, they just mixed in some clapping, which apparently does not belong to the recording. It's really awkward. Oh, here you go. I got it. And I mean, it's not rare per se. It just never turns up, I think.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And I always liked it because it has a different cover.
Yeah.
And nobody knows if it's really an official release. I mean, it's an RCA record.
Yeah.
And it has like pictured live and in trance, Backstage Queen, He's a Woman, She's a Man, Speed is Coming, the Rock and Roll Medley, and Dark Lady from Tokyo Tapes, and Always Somewhere, Another Piece of Meat, and Holiday from Love Drive.
That's a pretty cool song list right there. That's a lot of
Yeah,
good songs.
isn't it? But the three songs from Love Drive are actually taken from Love Drive. And
Yeah,
what's so awkward about it is that the record cover and the label says it's from 1978, which is impossible because at that time the songs weren't even recorded. I mean, they were recorded in late October till December 78 and were released early 79. So, however, it's well, humanly impossible, but you never know with Asian pressing. So I mean, that's
yeah,
kind of like
that's cool though. I'd
neat.
like
So
to have that.
yeah, well, those are the Scorpions records that I
Nice.
bought. As I said, I did not care about the records later. They were not really a 7-inch band. I mean, in Germany, I think up until Love Drive, they had only released like 2 or 3 7-inches, and I only. But there are almost all the songs. I mean, there's tons of 7-inches from Japan from the 70s with really cool covers. I just never got around buying them because I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not, I'm not consciously hunting for Japanese pressings. Just the only one I ever bought was the Taken by Force because I wanted to have that with the original cover art.
yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I know this was mainly about Scorpions, but I believe you said you may have some Maiden stuff you want to show.
Yeah, I mean, you wear the T-shirt. I just brought up Maiden because I mean that was my band, Iron Maiden. I mean, to me that when I was a kid, I mean, I
Yeah.
loved them. I missed them in 1980 when they did the first tour when they were opening for Kiss because I did not really care about Kiss all that much. And then the day after and I didn't know Maiden. I mean, the record had been released, but I wasn't really aware of it. I might have seen it, but
Yeah.
I didn't know how they sounded. And the next day, this friend of mine at school came up to me and said, "Well, man, you should have gone to the show. The opening act was so great." So I went out and bought the first Maiden LP.
Yeah.
And, uh, I was just blown away. So half year later, they were supposed to play in support of Killers, which had just been released, and I had tickets and everything, but the show was canceled on the day of the show because Clive Burr was sick or something. And the
Man.
only thing what they still did was like they had like an autograph hour at a record store, and I went there. So I have like all the early Maiden records. I have autographs
Oh yeah.
on.
That's awesome.
To see. So I brought them all, and they all have.
Wow.
They all have.
Yeah, that's awesome.
They're all fine. And then of course when so I did not see them with piano. To make a long story short, but I did see them when they first played with Bruce Dickinson and Trust were opening for them, and they did another autograph hour. That's why I have some of the records I have are signed double and by the whole band now.
Nice.
I do have those.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
And buying all that stuff. I mean, it was always kind of like in Germany at the time. It was a crapshoot. You did not know which records were just released or not. I mean, there was no Metal Hammer, and there was no Kerrang, there was no underground metal press or whatever. Stuff was not played on the radio. I mean, so you really pretty much had to play it by ear. Just go to the stores and hope that there's a new record. So whenever I found something new of the bands that I liked, I just bought it. Same thing with Motorhead. I bought so much, just 12 inches
Yeah.
that I found. And Motorhead they were being played on the radio. Believe
Oh
it or
wow.
not, it was very.
That is weird.
And that's
Wow.
the one guy who had played AC/DC, where it was a record of the week.
Yeah.
He played Overkill, and he really loved Overkill.
Wow.
And he even had Lemmy in the studio and did an interview with him. So in 1980, so that was pretty awesome.
That is awesome. That's very awesome.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, the only thing, I mean, I still have, I can show you a bunch of Sabbath records, but I mean, you all have the Sabbath records, I guess,
Right.
and I hope you do. The only thing that I thought in preparing for the show is, I mean, just show you some other heavy German records from the early 70s that are kind of
Yeah,
rare
yeah,
and
yeah. Please do.
interesting. Uh, this is a band called Armageddon.
Yeah.
They're from Berlin, I think, and they were like one of the first bands that covered "Better by You, Better Than Me."
Oh,
You know,
yeah, yeah.
and their version is pretty good too. So this is a pretty popular band, Birth Control, and the funny thing about the first album is that it looks like a birth control, like a pillbox. And they
Yeah,
were they were pretty popular, and the first three albums are just really great,
yeah.
really
That's
good
cool.
heavy rock.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check all this stuff out.
This is a pretty good horn rock, but still heavy, pretty rare, and a cool cover.
That is a cool. I was gonna say that's a cool cover.
73. This is like uh, Scorpion style hard rock from 78. Really good band. Easy Ray. It was funny when I bought it that it had the promo
Yeah, that's
stuff with
cool.
them for the press. This is a really good band. Gift,
Gift.
early 70s from Augsburg. This is a band called Harry Chapter. They're really popular for among collectors. They have like 2 albums that are really good. And one album that is really, really great. It's from 81. And it's just like almost Motorhead-ish in a way. It's this, The Hand of Doom.
I think I may have heard of
And,
that one. I don't know. Probably from you.
and they sound like the guys look like.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's really. This is a band called I Drive. They have like the singer's called Geoff Harrison, and he had played in a couple of. He's a British guy, but he had played in a couple of bands in Germany, and they're all really good. I Drive is really good. It became pretty popular with this band, Kin Ping Me. They have like a bunch of records out, but the good one is the first one. That's really good. This one, Lucifer's Friend.
Yeah.
They had this one that John Lawton was their singer, who was later on playing with Uriah Heep, singing for Uriah Heep. And they, a lot of people think that Zeppelin stole the Immigrant Song from Lucifer's Friend,
Ah.
which is probably bullshit. I think it's the other way around. Right the Sky is Right the Sky is the song that, because it has like this, they have like a horn playing like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it's similar, but I think Zeppelin first played that song in April 70, and Lucifer's Friend recorded their album in late 1970, so it
Yeah.
doesn't work out. This is a really good record, Megaton. They sound like it's another Led Zeppelin ripoff. It's really good. This is right, it's very rare. My Solid Ground. I mean, it's almost doom metal, and it's really good. I mean, you have to check it out. The song "The Executioner" is awesome, and
Yeah,
this is
that's
probably the heaviest record from Germany ever. Night Sun. It's just like one heavy riff after the other. It's just amazing.
the artwork is the
The,
cover art's
but
kind of
this,
cool.
yeah, but it's the second pressing. I have to say that it used to be on another label, and that's the one that goes for the big bucks. This is pretty common.
That's cool.
This is great. Band called Second Life. They have a song called Raiders of Night. It is so amazingly Neanderthal and dumb. It's wonderful. Just great riffage. And they later turned into this band, Tiger B. Smith, which apparently is like one of the favorite bands of the Monster Magnet guys. And if you listen to it, you know why. I mean, It's very much the blueprint for what Monster Magnet is doing. And this is a great record, Silverbart. And the drummer of Silverbart later turned out to be the drummer of Trio, you know, Da Da Da, in
Trio.
like this German new wave band, Da Da Da.
Yeah.
Love you not, and that was his first band. And like all the three guys used to be like in rock bands before.
Yeah.
They did Trio. This is Dirk Steffens. He used to be guitar player in Birth Control. This is like one of the best hard rock albums from Germany. It's really, really, really good. And people love this. Toad. It's a Swiss band, I have to say. It's the first one. That's the second. And their guitar player, Vic Vergat, is one of the best guitar players in Europe. It's very, very heavy, very cool. And they tried to make him into a solo star in the early 80s when, like, you know, the new wave of British heavy metal was taking off. But didn't hold. I'm almost through. And this is
this is cool.
This is Tomorrow's Gift. This is the guitar. This is the band of the guitar player. Later, Red Balloons.
The guitar. You broke up a little bit. The guitar player of what?
Of Nena, you know, the 99 Red
Nine
Balloons.
Love Balloons. Oh, okay, cool. I'm glad I asked. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
That was his first band. It's just so funny that all the guys who later became famous in new wave-ish pop bands like have history and played on heavy albums. So I'm just gonna skip through this. This is a really rare, nice one.
Yeah.
This is a band called Weed.
Weed.
They're really good. They're very heavy. Ken Hensley is involved from Uriah Heep. This is one of the great heavy albums from Germany, Wind. And the last two, I just picked those because you're going to like the covers.
Uh-oh. Can't see them. Okay, here we go. Oh, yeah. What is the name? Delusion? Okay.
Yeah, McChurch Sound Room.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that is a cool cover.
This is the other one, Message.
Yeah, they have a theme there.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. No, that's a lot. That's a lot of things. I
thought, well,
yeah, for sure. I like learning about different stuff. I know I've I guess discovered a lot of stuff, like, you know, from you guys over the years, which is kind of cool. You know, not gonna like everything, but there's plenty in there. I'm sure I'll be checking it out. And I know a lot of people will probably be really into checking that stuff out, like, you know, rare stuff like that probably very few people know about, at least around here. So no, that's awesome. I enjoyed that. Well, cool, man. I really appreciate it. This was cool. It was a lot of fun, actually, and educational at the very end. So I appreciate the stories and everything.
Yeah, I just hope that I got all the facts right. And probably have mixed up one or two things, but I mean that's the way I remember it. And yeah, those were awesome days and great days. And to end it with the Scorpions was that I had tickets for their show when they were doing Blackout, and but by the time when the showtime came, I had started listening to punk, and I did not want to go to the Scorpions anymore. And I went to a punk show instead. So it's kind of like, also, at least personally, has like a historical importance. But as I told Woody recently, I mean, I could slap myself that I did not go see the Scorps doing the Blackout.
Yeah, that's cool. No, that's awesome. I appreciate your time. If anybody wants to check out Thomas's old punk band, it's called Everything Falls Apart. You can probably find it on YouTube somewhere, I'm sure. So I know he let me hear it. I dig it. So it was like, what, mid 80s kind of, I think it came out. Something 86. Like that. Yeah. I mean, I can talk to you about I could talk to you a lot about, you know, the old punk hardcore days, but maybe we could save that for another time. Or the new wave of British heavy metal, because I know you and Eric got me into checking out a lot of that stuff. So, save that for another time. So, anyhow,
Yeah.
I appreciate your time. Appreciate you sharing the stuff and
Yeah.
the stories. It was
No,
really
no.
awesome. I appreciate it.